They say revenge is a dish best served cold. What they don't tell you is that sometimes it comes with a side of billboards and a garnish of public humiliation that'll make your cheating wife wish she'd never been born. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Mitchell Hayes, and 3 months ago, I thought I was living the American dream. Decent job in digital advertising, nice house in the suburbs of Cedar Falls, and a fiancée who looked like she stepped out of a magazine. Jessica Palmer, soon to be Jessica Hayes, or so I thought, worked at Sterling & Associates, the biggest marketing firm in the city. She was ambitious, beautiful, and had this way of making everyone in the room feel like they were the most important person in the world. Turns out she was just really good at lying. It all started with what I thought was the perfect proposal. I'd spent weeks planning it, booked a table at Chateau Margaux, the fancy French place downtown where you need a reservation 3 months in advance. I had the ring, a 2-carat diamond that cost me more than my car. I even practiced my speech in the mirror like some lovesick teenager. The night was perfect. Jessica wore this stunning black dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. Her blonde hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, and she had on the diamond earrings I'd bought her for her birthday. We shared a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget, talked about our future, laughed at inside jokes. When dessert came, I got down on one knee right there in front of everyone. "Jessica Palmer," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "You're the most incredible woman I've ever met. You make me want to be a better man every single day. Will you marry me?" The restaurant went silent. Every eye was on us. The ring sparkled under the chandelier lights like something out of a fairy tale. She said yes, of course. The whole place erupted in applause. The waiter brought us champagne on the house. Other diners came over to congratulate us. It was everything I'd dreamed it would be. Or so I thought. The problems started the next morning. Jessica was on her phone before she even got out of bed, scrolling through social media with a frown on her face. "What's wrong?" I asked, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "It's just..." She sighed, showing me her phone. "Look at Brittany's engagement story." Brittany Chen was Jessica's best friend and the most insufferable person I'd ever met. She was one of those Instagram influencers who made a living posting pictures of her breakfast and calling it lifestyle content. Everything about her was fake: her lips, her boobs, her personality. The video on her phone showed Brittany's boyfriend proposing to her in the middle of Times Square with a flash mob dancing around them. There were professional photographers, a drone camera, and what looked like half of Manhattan watching. "That's a lot," I said carefully. "It's amazing," Jessica breathed. "Look at how many views it has already. 2 million. And the ring..." She zoomed in on a diamond the size of a golf ball. "God, it's gorgeous." Something cold settled in my stomach. "You don't like your ring?" No, of course I do," she said quickly, but I could hear the lie in her voice. "It's just... a restaurant proposal is nice, but it's so... ordinary. Everyone does restaurant proposals. I thought you'd like the intimacy of it." I do, it's just..." She scrolled through more of Brittany's posts. "Never mind, I'm being silly." But she wasn't being silly, and we both knew it. Over the next few days, Jessica's mood grew increasingly sour. She'd make little comments about other people's engagement stories, about how creative and thoughtful they were. She started dropping hints about how we should redo the proposal, make it worthy of our love. "Maybe we could do something more public next time," she suggested one evening while we were watching TV. "Something people would remember." "Next time?" I laughed. "Jess, we're already engaged. The proposal is over." "But it could be better," she insisted. "More us, you know?" I didn't know. What I did know was that my fiancée was apparently embarrassed by the proposal I'd spent months planning and thousands of dollars executing. What I didn't know yet was that her dissatisfaction had nothing to do with flash mobs or Times Square, and everything to do with a certain someone at her office. The first real crack in our relationship came 2 weeks later. I was working late in my home office when I heard Jessica talking on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice was animated, excited in a way I hadn't heard in months. "I know, right?" she was saying. "It's like he doesn't even try anymore. Remember when we first started dating? He used to surprise me all the time. Now it's just predictable." I crept closer to the kitchen, my heart pounding. "I mean, I love him," Jessica continued, "but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who really gets me, someone who understands what I need." There was a pause, then she laughed. A sound like silver bells that used to make my chest tight with happiness. Now it just made me feel sick. "Don't say that, Brittany," she giggled. "But you're right. Darren would never propose in some boring restaurant. Remember that campaign he did for Nike? The one with the skydivers? That's the kind of man who knows how to make a statement." Darren Walsh, Jessica's boss at Sterling and Associates, tall, dark, handsome, and married with 2 kids. The kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a Tesla and probably had never had a self-doubting thought in his life. I stood there in my own hallway, listening to my fiancée compare me unfavorably to her married boss, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The love I'd felt for Jessica, pure, uncomplicated, devoted, began to curdle into something else entirely. "I should go," Jessica said. "Mitchell's probably wondering where I am." "Actually," I said, stepping into the kitchen, "Mitchell's right here." Jessica spun around, her face flushing red. "How long have you been standing there?" "Long enough." I kept my voice level, casual. "Talking to Brittany?" "Yeah, just girl talk. You know how it is." "Sure." I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer, taking my time. "How's Darren doing these days?" If possible, Jessica's face got even redder. "Fine, I guess. Why?" "Just curious. You talk about him a lot lately." "He's my boss, Mitchell. Of course I talk about him." "Right." I popped open the beer and took a long sip. "Well, I'm going to finish up some work. Don't let me interrupt your girl talk." I walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat down at my computer. But I couldn't concentrate on the campaign I was supposed to be reviewing. All I could think about was the way Jessica's voice had changed when she talked about Darren. The way she'd lit up discussing his creativity and his understanding. That night, lying in bed next to my sleeping fiancé, I made a decision. If Jessica wanted a more creative proposal, something that would really make a statement, I was going to give her exactly that. Just not the kind she was expecting. The next few weeks passed in a haze of fake normalcy. Jessica continued her passive-aggressive campaign about our boring engagement, dropping hints about couples who'd done amazing proposals and sharing Instagram posts of elaborate romantic gestures. I smiled and nodded and played the part of the clueless boyfriend who just didn't get it. But underneath the surface, I was conducting my own investigation. It started small. I began paying attention to Jessica's phone habits, her work schedule, her moods. I noticed she stayed late at the office more often, always with some excuse about a big campaign or an important client dinner. She'd come home energized and chatty, telling me stories about her day that seemed just a little too detailed, a little too rehearsed. Then there was her appearance. Jessica had always been beautiful, but suddenly she was taking extra care with her makeup, buying new clothes, getting her hair done more frequently. When I complimented her, she'd brush it off with some comment about needing to maintain her professional image. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks after the phone conversation I'd overheard. Jessica had left her iPad on the kitchen counter when she rushed out for work, and I noticed it was still synced to her phone. Her messages were right there, updating in real time. I told myself I was just curious, that I had a right to know what my fiancé was really thinking, that any reasonable person in my situation would do the same thing. The first few message threads were innocent enough. Conversations with her sister about wedding planning, work chats with colleagues, the usual back and forth with Brittany about restaurants and shopping. But then, I found the thread that changed everything. It was a group chat called Work Wives that included Jessica, Brittany, and 2 other women from Sterling and Associates. The messages went back months, and as I scrolled through them, a picture began to emerge that made my blood run cold. Brittany. Darren looked so good in that blue shirt today. Did you see how it brought out his eyes? Jessica. Girl, you're terrible. He's married. Brittany. So are you. Well, engaged. Same difference. Jessica. That's completely different, and you know it. Brittany. Is it though? Jessica. Yes, Mitchell and I are happy. Brittany. Happy and boring. When's the last time he surprised you? When's the last time he made your heart race? Jessica. It's not about that. Relationships aren't supposed to be constant excitement. Brittany. Says who? Look at how Darren treats his wife, always bringing her flowers, taking her on trips, posting about how amazing she is. When's the last time Mitchell posted about you? I scrolled down, my heart pounding. The conversation was from 2 months ago, right around the time I'd started planning the proposal. But it got worse. Jessica. I saw Darren's presentation today for the Morrison account. God, he's so passionate when he talks about his work. So confident. Brittany. And so hot. Jessica. I can't think about him like that. Brittany. But you do, don't you? There was a long pause in the messages, then, Jessica. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone like him. Someone who really goes after what he wants. Brittany. Someone who wouldn't propose in a boring restaurant? Jessica. That's not fair. Brittany. But it's true, isn't it? You deserve better than ordinary, Jess. You deserve someone who sees how special you are. I set the iPad down with shaking hands. This conversation had happened before my proposal, which meant Jessica had been doubting our relationship even then. But there was more. I scrolled forward to more recent messages after our engagement. Jessica. I keep thinking about what you said, about deserving better. Brittany. The proposal thing? Jessica. All of it. Mitchell's sweet, but he's so predictable, safe. Sometimes I feel like I'm settling. Brittany. Then don't settle. You're young, you're gorgeous. You could have anyone you want. Jessica. It's not that simple. We've been together for 3 years. We have a life together. Brittany. A boring life. Jess, I love you, but you're wasting your 20s on a man who thinks dinner at Applebee's is a romantic date. Jessica. He doesn't take me to Applebee's. Brittany. You know what I mean. When's the last time he did something that made you feel alive? Really alive? Jessica. I don't know. It's been a while. Brittany. Exactly. You know who would never let you feel bored? Darren. Jessica. Brittany. Brittany. I'm just saying. The man knows how to treat a woman. Did you see the flowers he sent Sarah for their anniversary? 24 white roses delivered to her office with a note about how she's the light of his life. When's the last time Mitchell sent you flowers? Jessica. He brought me flowers after the proposal. Brittany. Gas station flowers don't count. They weren't gas station flowers. They were from the most expensive florist in the city, and they'd cost me $200. But apparently, that detail had gotten lost in translation. The messages continued, each one driving the knife deeper into my chest. Jessica complaining about my lack of ambition, my predictable routines, my safe approach to life. Brittany encouraging her to explore her options and see what else is out there. And then, in the most recent messages from just 2 days ago, Jessica. I had lunch with Darren today, just the 2 of us to discuss the Henderson project. Brittany. And? Jessica. He asked about the engagement, said he hoped I was happy. Brittany. What did you tell him? Jessica. The truth. That I love Mitchell, but sometimes I wonder if love is enough. Brittany. What did he say to that? Jessica. That I deserve someone who makes me feel like the most important person in the world. Every single day. Brittany. Damn. That's... wow. Jessica. I know. And the way he looked at me when he said it, God, Brittany, I think I'm in trouble. Brittany. Good trouble or bad trouble? Jessica. I don't know. Both? I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. My fiancée was having an emotional affair with her married boss, encouraged by her toxic best friend who seemed to think life was some kind of romantic comedy where the heroine deserves to have everything handed to her on a silver platter. But I wasn't done reading. There were photos too, pictures Jessica had sent to the group chat from various work events. Darren at the company Christmas party, looking handsome in a black tuxedo. Darren giving a presentation, his sleeves rolled up, and his hair perfectly styled. Darren at a client dinner, raising a glass of wine and smiling that confident smile that probably made women across the city swoon. And in some of the more recent photos, there was Jessica, standing just a little too close to Darren at the office happy hour, laughing at something he'd said during a team meeting. Looking at him with an expression I recognized because she used to look at me that way, like he was the most fascinating person she'd ever met. The final nail in the coffin came in the form of a video Brittany had sent to the group chat just yesterday. It was taken at some upscale bar downtown, and it showed Jessica and Darren sitting in a corner booth, deep in conversation. Their heads were close together, and Darren's hand was resting on Jessica's arm. As I watched, he leaned in and whispered something in her ear that made her laugh and blush like a schoolgirl. The video was only 10 seconds long, but it told me everything I needed to know. My fiancée wasn't just fantasizing about her boss, she was actively pursuing him. And from the looks of things, he wasn't exactly discouraging her advances. I closed the iPad and sat back in my chair, my mind racing. The smart thing would be to confront Jessica directly, to have an adult conversation about what I'd discovered and try to work through our problems like mature people. But I wasn't feeling particularly mature. I was feeling angry and betrayed and humiliated. Jessica wanted excitement. She wanted someone who could make a grand gesture, someone who understood what she needed. Fine. I'd give her exactly what she was asking for, just not in the way she expected. I spent the next week acting like nothing had changed. I kissed Jessica goodbye in the mornings, asked about her day when she came home, and made small talk over dinner like we were still the happy couple everyone thought we were. But inside, I was planning. The idea came to me during my morning commute. I was stuck in traffic on Highway 9, staring at the same billboard I'd seen every day for the past 2 years, an advertisement for a local car dealership featuring a grinning salesman and the tagline, "We'll make you a deal you can't refuse." The billboard was impossible to ignore, positioned right at the spot where traffic always backed up during rush hour. Thousands of people saw it every single day. That's when it hit me. Jessica wanted a grand gesture, something public and memorable, something that would make a statement about our relationship. I could give her all of that and more. I pulled over at the next exit and called the number on the billboard. A gruff voice answered on the third ring. "Morrison Outdoor Advertising, this is Frank." "Hi, Frank. I'm interested in renting billboard space. How does that work?" "Depends on what you want and where you want it. We've got spots all over the city. What kind of business you advertising?" "It's not for a business. It's personal." There was a pause. "Personal how?" "Let's just say I want to make a statement my fiancé will never forget." Frank chuckled. "Oh, one of those. Yeah, we get a few of those every year. Usually it's proposals or anniversary messages. Sweet stuff. What did you have in mind?" "Something along the lines of a public service announcement." "Okay." Frank sounded intrigued now. "You want to come in and talk about it?" I'm free this afternoon if you want to discuss locations and pricing. Perfect. I'll be there at 2. Morrison Outdoor Advertising was located in a strip mall between a dry cleaner and a Chinese restaurant. The office was exactly what I'd expected. Fluorescent lights, metal desks, and walls covered with photos of billboards from around the city. Frank Morrison turned out to be a heavy-set man in his 50s with graying hair and the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd spent most of his life working outdoors. "So," he said, gesturing for me to sit down, "tell me about this statement you want to make." I'd spent the drive over thinking about how to approach this conversation. My fiancée has been complaining that our relationship lacks excitement. She thinks I'm too predictable, too boring. She wants me to be more creative. And you want to surprise her with a billboard. Something like that. I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot I'd taken from Jessica's messages. She's been telling her friends that I don't make grand gestures, that I don't understand what she needs. Frank squinted at the screen. Ouch. That's rough, man. Yeah, so I thought I'd give her exactly what she's asking for, a public declaration that everyone in the city will see. What kind of declaration? I'd been working on the wording all morning. Something like, Jessica Palmer thinks her fiancé's proposal wasn't good enough. What do you think? Frank's eyebrows shot up. That's not exactly what I was expecting. She wants memorable. She wants people to talk about it. This will definitely accomplish both of those things. You sure about this, son? Once that billboard goes up, there's no taking it back. The whole city's going to see it. That's the point. Frank leaned back in his chair, studying me. You know, in 30 years of this business, I've seen all kinds of messages. Love declarations, marriage proposals, birthday wishes, memorials. But I've never done anything quite like this. Is that a problem? Not legally, as long as we're not violating any decency standards or defaming anyone. But are you sure this is how you want to handle things? Maybe you should talk to her first, work things out privately. I thought about the video of Jessica and Darren at the bar, about the messages where she'd called our relationship boring and predictable, about the way she'd been coming home late with increasingly elaborate excuses. I've tried talking to her. She's not interested in working things out. She's interested in finding someone more exciting. And you know this for sure. I know it for sure. Frank was quiet for a long moment, then shrugged. All right. It's your money and your relationship. Let's talk locations. He spread out a map of the city and began pointing to various spots. We've got availability on Highway 9 at the Morrison Street exit. That's prime real estate. Gets about 50,000 views per day during rush hour. There's also a spot on 5th Avenue downtown, right across from the Sterling Building. That one gets heavy foot traffic, lots of business people. The Sterling Building, where Jessica worked, where Darren worked. The 5th Avenue location, I said immediately. How much? That's one of our premium spots. $5,000 for a month-long rental. Done. Frank looked surprised. You don't want to think about it? That's a lot of money for a personal message. It's worth it. When can you have it up? If you sign the contract today and get me the artwork by tomorrow, we can have it installed by Friday. Perfect. Friday was when Jessica had her weekly lunch meeting with the senior staff, which, according to her stories, usually included Darren. They'd be walking right past that billboard. I signed the contract and paid the deposit, then drove home to work on the design. I wanted something simple but eye-catching, something that would be impossible to ignore. After several attempts, I settled on a clean, professional layout, with bold black text on a white background. Jessica Palmer thinks her fiancé's proposal wasn't good enough. What do you think, Mitchell? At the bottom, in smaller text, I added, she wanted something more memorable. Hope this helps. It was perfect. Professional enough to avoid any legal issues, but personal enough to make Jessica's life very uncomfortable. And by including my name, I was making it clear that this wasn't some anonymous attack. This was a deliberate, calculated response to her behavior. I sent the design to Frank that evening, then sat back and waited. Jessica was working late again, another client dinner that would probably run until after midnight. I didn't bother waiting up for her. The billboard went live on Friday morning at exactly 8 a.m. I know because I drove by to see it myself and nearly crashed my car when I saw my words displayed in 10-foot-tall letters across from one of the busiest intersections in the city. It was beautiful. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. "Mitchell, what the hell is this?" Jessica's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What's what?" I asked innocently. "The billboard, the giant billboard with my name on it that everyone at my office can see from their windows." "Oh, that. I thought you'd like it. You said you wanted something more memorable than a restaurant proposal." "I didn't mean... Everyone is staring at me. My boss wants to see me in his office in 10 minutes. Darren wanted to see her in his office. I wondered if he was as charmed by my creativity as Jessica was. "I thought you'd appreciate the grand gesture," I said calmly. "Isn't this the kind of thing you've been asking for? Something public and dramatic that makes a statement about our relationship?" "This is insane. You're embarrassing me in front of the entire city." "I'm just giving you what you wanted, Jess. You said I was too predictable, too boring. You said I didn't understand what you needed. Well, now I understand perfectly." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Take it down," she said finally, her voice deadly quiet. "I can't. I signed a month-long contract." "Mitchell, I swear to God..." "You swear to God what? You'll leave me? Find someone more exciting? I hate to break it to you, but I'm already aware of your backup plan." Another silence, longer this time. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know about Darren." I heard her sharp intake of breath, and I knew I'd hit the target. "I don't know what you think you know, but..." "I know enough. Have a good day at work, Jessica. Try to enjoy the view from your office window." I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I drove to my own office, where I spent the day fielding calls from friends and colleagues who'd seen the billboard. Most of them were confused, some were concerned, and a few thought it was hilarious. But the best call came from Tyler Martinez, my buddy from the gym. "Dude," he said, barely able to contain his laughter, "please tell me you saw Jessica's Facebook post." I hadn't. I'd been avoiding social media all day, not wanting to see the inevitable fallout. But Tyler's tone suggested I was missing something good. "What did she say?" "She posted this long thing about how some people handle relationship problems with immature public displays instead of honest communication. She's trying to make you look like the bad guy." "Of course she is. But here's the thing. The comments are not going the way she expected. People are asking what she did to deserve a billboard. Someone even asked if she cheated on you." I felt a grim smile spread across my face. "Really? Really?" And get this. Brittany Chen tried to defend her, and someone replied with screenshots of Brittany's Instagram stories from last month, where she was bragging about how her boyfriend's proposal was so much better than everyone else's. People are putting two and two together, man. They're figuring out that Jessica was being ungrateful about your proposal. This was better than I'd hoped. Not only was the billboard accomplishing its purpose, but Jessica's attempt to control the narrative was backfiring spectacularly. "There's more," Tyler continued. "Someone in the comments mentioned seeing Jessica at Martini's last week with some guy who wasn't you. Said they looked pretty cozy." Martini's was the upscale bar where Brittany had filmed that video of Jessica and Darren. Apparently, they hadn't been as discreet as they'd thought. "This is just the beginning," I told Tyler. "I've got a few more surprises planned." "More billboards?" "Among other things. Jessica wanted excitement and drama. I'm going to give her more than she can handle." After I hung up, I sat back in my office chair and allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. The first phase of my plan was working perfectly. Jessica was embarrassed. Her co-workers were talking, and her attempt to play the victim was falling flat. But I wasn't done, not even close. Phase 2 was going to be even better. The fallout from the first billboard was everything I'd hoped for and more. Jessica came home that Friday night, looking like she'd been through a war zone. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup was smudged, and there were stress lines around her eyes that I'd never seen before. "We need to talk," she said the moment she walked through the door. "Sure. How was work?" She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. How was work? Mitchell, everyone in my office spent the entire day asking me about that billboard. My boss called me into his office twice. HR wants to meet with me on Monday to discuss whether this affects my professional image. That sounds stressful. Don't. Her voice was sharp. Don't you dare act like this is no big deal. You've humiliated me in front of the entire city. I've given you exactly what you asked for, a memorable public gesture that makes a statement about our relationship. This isn't what I meant and you know it? Then maybe you should have been more specific. I walked to the kitchen and opened a beer, taking my time. Or maybe you should have thought twice before telling your friends how boring and predictable I am. Jessica followed me, her heels clicking angrily on the hardwood floor. You went through my phone? Your iPad, actually. You left it on the counter, still synced to your messages. Very convenient. Her face went pale. Mitchell, I know about the group chat, Jessica. I know about your conversations with Brittany about how I'm not exciting enough, how I don't make your heart race, how you deserve someone better. Those were private conversations. About our relationship. About how dissatisfied you are with the man you agreed to marry. I think I had a right to know. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her trying to figure out exactly how much I'd seen. I also know about Darren, I added casually. The color drained completely from her face. There's nothing what? Nothing going on between you and your married boss? Nothing inappropriate about your cozy lunch dates and late-night text sessions? Nothing wrong with the way you light up every time you talk about him? We're just friends. Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other in that video Brittany took at Martini's. Jessica sank into one of the kitchen chairs, her fight suddenly gone out of her. It's not what you think. Really? Then explain it to me. Explain why my fiancée is spending her evenings complaining to her friends about how boring I am while getting cozy with her boss at expensive bars. It's complicated. No, it's really not. You're having an emotional affair with a married man, and you've been using your dissatisfaction with our engagement as an excuse to justify it. Tears started rolling down Jessica's cheeks, but I felt no sympathy for her. Not anymore. I never meant for it to happen, she whispered. But it did happen, and instead of coming to me and talking about whatever problems you were having with our relationship, you decided to share them with your toxic friend and your married boss. Brittany's not toxic. Brittany is the kind of person who encourages her friends to blow up their relationships because she thinks life is supposed to be a constant Instagram highlight reel. She's been in your ear for months, telling you that you deserve better, that you should explore your options, and you listen to her instead of talking to me. Jessica was crying harder now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mitchell. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did hurt me, and you humiliated me, and now you're upset because I returned the favor. Please, she begged. Can't we work this out? Can't you take down the billboard and we can go to counseling or something? I looked at the woman I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with, and felt nothing but cold anger. You want to work this out? Fine. Cut off all contact with Darren except for what's absolutely necessary for work. Delete Brittany's number. Post a public apology on social media explaining that you were ungrateful about my proposal and that you're sorry for embarrassing both of us. I can't do that. Then we have nothing to work out. Mitchell, please, the billboard stays up for the full month, and if I find out you're still talking to Darren outside of work, or if Brittany keeps poisoning your mind with her bullshit, there will be more billboards, with more details. Jessica's eyes widened. You wouldn't. Try me. She stared at me for a long moment, then stood up and walked toward the bedroom. I'm staying at Brittany's tonight. Give her my regards. After she left, I poured myself another beer and sat down at my computer. It was time to start working on billboard number 2. The weekend passed quietly. Jessica didn't come home, didn't call, didn't even text. I spent Saturday at the gym with Tyler, who filled me in on the latest social media drama surrounding my billboard. It's gone viral, he told me as we worked through our chest routine. Someone posted a picture of it on Reddit, and now there are entire threads of people debating whether you're a genius or a psychopath. What's the consensus? Mixed. But here's the interesting part. Someone found Jessica's Instagram and started going through her old posts. They found a bunch of pictures from work events where she's standing really close to some guy who looks like a male model. That would be Darren. Yeah, people are connecting the dots. There's a whole conspiracy theory now about how she was cheating on you, and that's why you put up the billboard. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's true. Exactly. Oh, and get this. Brittany tried to defend Jessica again, and someone replied with a link to an article about emotional affairs. The comments section is brutal. I felt a surge of satisfaction. The court of public opinion was turning in my favor, just as I'd hoped. Monday morning brought a text from Jessica. We need to talk. Can you meet me for lunch? I agreed to meet her at a small cafe downtown, far from her office and the billboard that was still making her life miserable. She was already there when I arrived, looking exhausted and defeated. I've been thinking about what you said, she began before I even sat down. And? You're right. About some of it, anyway. I was ungrateful about the proposal, and I shouldn't have been talking to my friends about our private business. And Darren? She looked down at her hands. I ended it. Whatever it was. I told him we needed to keep things strictly professional. How did he take that? Not well. He said he thought we had something special. I bet he did. What about his wife? Does she know about your something special? Jessica flinched. It never went that far. Yet. It wouldn't have. I'm not that kind of person. You're exactly that kind of person, Jessica. You just hadn't followed through yet. We sat in silence for a moment, then Jessica looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Can we try to fix this? Please? I know I screwed up, but I love you. I want to make this work. I studied her face, looking for any sign that she meant what she was saying. All I saw was desperation and embarrassment. You love me? Or you love the idea of not being the woman who got dumped via billboard? I love you, she insisted. I know I haven't acted like it lately, but I do. Prove it. How? I told you how on Friday. Cut contact with Darren, delete Brittany's number, and post a public apology. I can't delete Brittany. She's my best friend. Brittany is the reason we're in this mess. She's been encouraging you to sabotage our relationship from day one. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time Brittany said anything positive about me? When's the last time she encouraged you to work on our relationship instead of looking for something better? Jessica was quiet, and I could see her trying to think of an example. She's just looking out for me, she said finally. She's looking out for her own entertainment. She likes drama, and she likes being the friend who gets to comfort you when your life falls apart. She doesn't want you to be happy. She wants you to be dependent on her. You don't know her like I do. I know her well enough. And I know that as long as she's in your life, she'll keep poisoning your mind against me. Jessica started crying again. I can't choose between you and my best friend. You already chose. You chose her advice over my feelings. You chose her validation over our relationship. You chose to confide in her instead of talking to me. That's not... It's exactly what happened. And now you want me to pretend like everything's fine while you keep the same toxic influences in your life that caused this problem in the first place. I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. The billboard comes down in 3 weeks. If you want to try to salvage this relationship, you know what you need to do. If not, I suggest you start looking for a new apartment. I walked out of the cafe, leaving Jessica crying at the table. I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was quickly overwhelmed by anger and hurt. She'd had multiple opportunities to handle this situation like an adult, and she'd chosen to lie, cheat, and play the victim instead. But I wasn't done with her yet, not even close. That afternoon, I called Frank Morrison. "I want to rent another billboard," I told him. "Jesus, Mitchell. The first one's caused enough of a stir. You sure you want to keep poking this bear?" "I'm sure. Same location if it's available." "It's available. What's the message this time?" I'd been working on the wording all morning. Jessica Palmer gave back the ring and demanded a do-over. "Still think she's the victim?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. That's pretty brutal, man." "She wanted memorable. I'm giving her memorable." "All right, it's your money. When do you want it up?" "As soon as possible." The second billboard went live on Wednesday morning. By noon, my phone was buzzing with calls and texts from friends, family, and even a few reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. But the call I was waiting for came at 2:30 p.m. "You bastard!" Jessica screamed into the phone. "I tried to work things out with you. I tried to fix this." "Did you? Because from where I'm sitting, you refuse to do any of the things I asked you to do. I can't just cut my best friend out of my life." "Then you've made your choice. Enjoy the billboard." "Mitchell, please. People are calling me a gold digger. My coworkers are treating me like a pariah. My boss—" "Your boss what? Is Darren not as interested now that your dirty laundry is public?" Silence. That's what I thought. Turns out married men aren't as eager to pursue women when there's a spotlight on their behavior. "You've ruined my life." "You ruined your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it." I hung up and smiled. The second billboard was working even better than the first. Jessica's reputation was in tatters. Her affair with Darren was effectively over, and the entire city was talking about the drama. But I still wasn't finished. I had one more surprise planned, and this one was going to be the grand finale Jessica had always wanted. She just wasn't going to like it very much. By Thursday, the story had taken on a life of its own. Local news stations were running segments about the billboard war between an engaged couple in Cedar Falls. Radio DJs were taking calls from listeners sharing their own relationship horror stories. Someone had even created a hashtag, Billboard Bay, that was trending locally on Twitter. Jessica had become infamous overnight, and not in the way she'd always dreamed about. I was at work Thursday afternoon when Tyler called with an update on the social media situation. "Dude, you need to see this," he said, barely able to contain his excitement. Brittany just posted a video defending Jessica, and it's backfiring spectacularly. "What kind of video?" "She's sitting in her car, crying, talking about how you're a toxic manipulator who's publicly abusing Jessica. She's calling for people to report your billboards and boycott your company." "How's that working out for her?" The comments are brutal. People are roasting her for encouraging Jessica to cheat. Someone found old posts where she was bragging about helping Jessica explore her options. Another person posted screenshots of her talking about how Jessica deserved better than you. I felt a grim satisfaction. Brittany had finally overplayed her hand, and people were seeing her for what she really was, a toxic friend who thrived on drama and destruction. "There's more," Tyler continued. "Someone claiming to be Darren's wife commented on the video. She thanked you for opening her eyes about her husband's work relationships." "No kidding?" "Dead serious. She said she'd been suspicious about Jessica for months but didn't have any proof. Your billboards gave her the push she needed to start asking questions." This was an unexpected bonus. I'd been focused on exposing Jessica's behavior, but apparently I'd also done Sarah Walsh a favor by revealing her husband's wandering eye. "What did she find out?" According to her comment, Darren admitted to the emotional affair when she confronted him. Apparently, it wasn't his first time crossing lines with female colleagues. I almost felt sorry for Sarah Walsh. Almost. But then I remembered how Jessica had gushed about Darren's romantic gestures toward his wife, and I realized those gestures were probably guilt-motivated attempts to cover up his serial cheating. Is Jessica responding to any of this? That's the best part. She posted this long statement about how she's the victim of a cruel and unusual punishment for minor relationship issues. She's trying to frame this as domestic abuse. Minor relationship issues? Right? People are not buying it. The top comment is someone asking if emotional affairs count as minor issues now. After I hung up with Tyler, I spent some time reading through the social media coverage of my billboard campaign. Jessica's attempt to portray herself as a victim was falling flat, especially after people started digging into her online history and finding evidence of her complaints about our relationship. But what really caught my attention was a message I'd received on LinkedIn from someone named Megan Torres, who identified herself as a junior designer at Sterling & Associates. "Hi, Mitchell," the message read. "I hope you don't mind me reaching out, but I wanted you to know that not everyone at Jessica's office thinks you're the bad guy here. A lot of us have been watching the Jessica-Darren situation unfold for months, and frankly, we're glad someone finally called them out on it. Jessica has been acting like she's too good for you while openly flirting with a married man, and it was making everyone uncomfortable. Your billboards might seem harsh, but sometimes people need a wake-up call. Also, I thought you should know that Jessica has been telling people at work that you're mentally unstable and that she's afraid of what you might do next. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case she tries to escalate things legally." This was interesting. Jessica was trying to build a case for me being dangerous or unstable, probably hoping to get a restraining order or something that would force me to take down the billboards. But she'd made a crucial mistake. She was doing it at work, where multiple people could witness her lies. I responded to Megan's message, thanking her for the information and asking if she'd be willing to document any false statements Jessica made about me. She agreed immediately, saying she was tired of Jessica's drama affecting the workplace. It was time to play my final card. Friday morning, I called Frank Morrison one more time. "Let me guess," he said when he heard my voice. "Billboard number 3? Actually, I want to rent the electronic billboard on Highway 9, the big one." Frank whistled. "That's our premium location. Costs twice as much as the static boards. Money's not an issue. I want it to cycle through 3 different messages." "What kind of messages?" I'd been working on this all week, refining the wording until it was perfect. Message 1, Jessica Palmer, ungrateful fiancé or cheating girlfriend. You decide. Message 2, she wanted a more exciting relationship. Found it with her married boss. Message 3, Mitchell Hayes is now single and accepting applications. Frank was quiet for a long moment. "That last one, that's your way of announcing you're done with her?" "That's exactly what it is. I want it to go live Monday morning, right in time for the morning commute." "You sure about this? Once you put that up, there's no going back. You're basically ending your relationship in front of the entire city." "The relationship ended the moment she started fantasizing about her boss. I'm just making it official." "All right then, I'll get it set up." I spent the weekend preparing for the aftermath of billboard number 3. I packed up Jessica's belongings. She'd been staying at Brittany's since our confrontation the previous Friday, and arranged for a moving truck to deliver them to her friend's apartment. I changed the locks on the house, canceled her credit cards, and removed her from all of our joint accounts. If Jessica wanted excitement and drama, she was about to get more than she'd ever bargained for. The electronic billboard went live at exactly 7 a.m. on Monday morning, right as thousands of commuters were making their way into the city. My phone started ringing before I even made it to work. The first call was from my mother. "Mitchell Thomas Hayes," she said in the voice she'd used when I was in trouble as a kid. "What in God's name is going on? Your father just called me from his car, shouting about some billboard with your name on it. It's a long story, Mom. Well, you better start talking, because half the city is calling me asking if my son has lost his mind. I gave her the abbreviated version, Jessica's complaints about our relationship, her emotional affair with Darren, the messages I'd found on her iPad. By the time I finished, my mother's tone had completely changed. "That little witch," she said, and I was surprised by the venom in her voice. I never liked her, Mitchell. Too concerned with appearances, too focused on what other people thought. But I never imagined she'd do something like this. You never liked Jessica? She was polite enough, but there was something cold about her, like she was always calculating what she could get out of every situation. Your father and I were worried you couldn't see it, because you were so smitten. This was news to me. My parents had never said anything negative about Jessica during our 3-year relationship. Why didn't you say anything? Because you're an adult, and it wasn't our place to interfere. But honey, you deserve so much better than someone who would treat you the way she's been treating you. The second call was from Jessica, and she was beyond hysterical. "Take it down!" she screamed. "Take it down right now!" Good morning to you too, Jessica. This isn't funny. People are honking at me on the street. Someone threw a coffee cup at my car. Maybe you should take a different route to work. Mitchell, I'm begging you. Please. I'll do anything you want. I'll cut off Brittany. I'll quit my job. I'll move to another city. Just please make this stop. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We can still fix this. No, we can't. You made your choice, Jessica. You chose Darren over me, drama over stability, excitement over love. This is what that choice looks like. I chose you. I came back to you. You came back because Darren wasn't interested in leaving his wife for you. You came back because your affair got exposed and you needed damage control. You didn't come back because you love me. You came back because I was your safety net. She was crying now, ugly sobs that might have moved me a week ago. But I was done being moved by Jessica Palmer's tears. The billboard stays up, I said. Your stuff is being delivered to Brittany's apartment this afternoon. Don't come back to the house. You can't just throw me out. I live there too. Actually, I can. The house is in my name, the mortgage is in my name, and you never contributed a dime to either. Legally, you're just a guest who's overstayed her welcome. I hung up and turned off my phone. I had work to do, and I was tired of Jessica's dramatics. The rest of the day passed in a blur of calls from friends, reporters, and random strangers who'd somehow gotten my number. By evening, the story had been picked up by national news outlets. I was being called everything from a creative genius to a public menace, depending on which website you visited. But the call that mattered most came from Tyler around 6 p.m. Dude, you need to get down to Murphy's bar right now. Why? Because Jessica and Brittany are here, and they're drunk and talking shit about you to anyone who'll listen. Jessica's telling people you were abusive, that you controlled her finances, that you threatened her. It's getting ugly. I sighed. I'd been hoping Jessica would have the sense to lay low for a while, but apparently she'd decided to go on the offensive instead. Are people believing her? Some are. But here's the thing. Darren's here too, with his wife, and Sarah Walsh does not look happy. This I had to see. Murphy's bar was packed when I arrived, and I could feel the tension the moment I walked through the door. Jessica was holding court at a table near the back, surrounded by a small crowd of people listening to her sob story about her abusive ex-fiancé. Brittany was next to her, nodding along and adding her own commentary about toxic masculinity and public shaming. But across the room, Darren Walsh was sitting at the bar with his wife, and both of them looked miserable. Sarah was a petite brunette with sharp eyes and an expression that could cut glass. Darren looked like he wanted to disappear into his beer. I made my way to the bar and ordered a drink, positioning myself close enough to hear both conversations. He's been controlling me for years, Jessica was saying, her words slightly slurred. monitoring my phone, questioning my friendships, isolating me from people who cared about me. That's classic abuser behavior, Brittany chimed in. He's been gaslighting her, making her think she was the problem when really he was the one with issues. I nearly laughed out loud. Jessica was describing the exact opposite of our relationship. I'd been the one begging her to communicate more, to spend more time together, to work on our problems instead of complaining to her friends. But then I heard Sarah Walsh's voice, cold and clear across the bar. "So you're the woman my husband was having an affair with." The entire bar went quiet. Jessica's head snapped up, her face going pale as she realized who was talking. I don't know what you mean," Jessica stammered. "Of course you do. You're Jessica Palmer, the woman who's been texting my husband, having cozy lunches with him, telling him how unhappy you were in your relationship." Sarah stood up and walked over to Jessica's table, her heels clicking ominously on the wooden floor. The crowd around Jessica melted away, sensing the coming confrontation. "I want to thank you," Sarah continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Your fiancé's billboards gave me the push I needed to finally confront my husband about his wandering eye. And guess what I found out?" Jessica said nothing, just stared up at Sarah with wide, terrified eyes. "I found out that you weren't the first. Darren has a pattern of getting involved with younger women at work, making them feel special, making them think he might leave his wife for them. But he never does. He just strings them along until they become inconvenient, then drops them and moves on to the next one." Sarah leaned down, putting her face inches from Jessica's. "You were never special, sweetheart. You were just the latest in a long line of stupid girls who thought they could steal someone else's husband." The bar was dead silent now, everyone watching the drama unfold. "But here's the really funny part," Sarah continued. "While you were fantasizing about your future with my husband, he was at home telling me how pathetic and desperate you were, how you threw yourself at him even though you knew he was married, how you badmouthed your fiancé to try to make yourself look available." Jessica's face was bright red now, tears streaming down her cheeks. "That's not—" He said what? That he cared about you? That you had something special? Honey, he says that to all of them. It's his standard playbook." Sarah straightened up and looked around the bar. "Ladies, let this be a lesson. If a married man is willing to cheat with you, he's willing to cheat on you. And if he's willing to lie to his wife, he's definitely willing to lie to you." She turned back to Jessica one more time. "Oh, and Jessica? I'm filing for divorce. Darren's going to lose half of everything he owns, including that Tesla you probably thought was so impressive. I hope your little affair was worth it." Sarah Walsh walked out of the bar with her head held high, leaving behind a stunned silence. Darren followed her a moment later, looking like a broken man. Jessica sat at her table, sobbing into her hands while Brittany tried unsuccessfully to comfort her. The crowd that had been listening to her victim's story was now looking at her with disgust and pity. I finished my beer and stood up to leave. As I walked past Jessica's table, I leaned down and whispered in her ear. "You wanted excitement, Jessica. How's this working out for you?" She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I hate you." "I know, but at least now everyone knows who you really are." I walked out of Murphy's bar and into the cool evening air, feeling lighter than I had in months. Jessica's reputation was destroyed, her affair was exposed, and her victim narrative had been shattered by the wife of the man she'd been chasing. It was over. Finally, completely, definitively over. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I was genuinely excited about what came next. 3 weeks later, the last of my billboards came down. The electronic sign on Highway 9 had been cycling through its messages for 21 days, reminding the entire city that Mitchell Hayes was single and accepting applications. And apparently, a lot of people had taken that message to heart. My inbox was flooded with messages from women who'd seen the billboards and wanted to meet the guy who'd had the balls to publicly call out his cheating fiancé. My phone was buzzing constantly with friend requests, date offers, and business propositions from people who admired my creative approach to relationship problems. I'd become something of a local celebrity, and while the attention was flattering, I was ready for things to calm down. Jessica, on the other hand, had disappeared from public view entirely. According to Tyler, who kept tabs on the social media gossip, she'd been fired from Sterling and Associates after the confrontation at Murphy's bar. Apparently, her dramatic public breakdown and the revelation about her affair with Darren had made her too much of a liability for the company to keep around. Darren Walsh had also been let go, though his departure was announced as a mutual decision to pursue other opportunities. His wife had followed through on her divorce threat, and the proceedings were apparently getting messy. Word was that Sarah Walsh had hired the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city and was going after everything Darren owned. Brittany Chen had tried to maintain her influencer status by posting daily updates about the injustice her friend had suffered, but her follower count was plummeting as people got tired of her victim narrative. Several sponsors had dropped her, and her engagement rates were in the toilet. It was, in short, a complete and total victory. But I wasn't done yet. I had one final message to deliver, and this one was going to be the most satisfying of all. I called Frank Morrison on a Tuesday morning in late March. "Mitchell, how's life treating you, man?" "Pretty well, actually. Listen, I want to rent one more billboard, just for a week this time." Frank chuckled. "What's the message? Thanks for playing? Better luck next time?" Something like that. I wanted to say, to Jessica Palmer, "You wanted a grand gesture. Hope you enjoyed the show. Mitchell Hayes, happily single." That's perfect, actually. A nice way to close out the whole saga. Exactly. Can you put it up on the Fifth Avenue location, right across from the Sterling building? Consider it done. The final billboard went up on Friday morning, and by noon it was all over social media. People were calling it the perfect ending to the most entertaining relationship drama the city had seen in years. Local news stations ran segments about the conclusion of the billboard wars. Radio DJs were playing clips from interviews I'd given, praising my commitment to the bit. But the best response came from an unexpected source. I was at home that evening, enjoying a quiet beer on my back porch, when my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sarah Walsh standing on my front step, looking composed and elegant, in a way that Jessica never quite managed. "Mrs. Walsh," I said, surprised. "What can I do for you?" "I wanted to thank you," she said simply, "and to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For my husband's behavior, for the pain he caused you, for the role he played in destroying your relationship." I studied her face, looking for signs of the broken woman I'd expected to find. Instead, I saw someone who looked relieved, almost liberated. "You don't need to apologize for him," I said. "His choices aren't your responsibility." "Maybe not, but I wanted you to know that not all of us Walshes are cheating scumbags." She smiled, and I was struck by how genuinely beautiful she was when she wasn't confronting her husband's mistress in a bar. "I also wanted to give you this." She handed me an envelope with my name written on it in elegant script. "What is it?" "A thank you note, and an invitation." I opened the envelope and found a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. "Dear Mitchell," it read, "I know we've never been properly introduced, but I feel like I owe you a debt of gratitude. Your billboards gave me the courage to finally confront the truth about my marriage and take action to protect myself and my children. Darren had been gaslighting me for years, making me think I was paranoid and jealous, when really I was just observant. Your public exposure of his affair validated everything I'd been feeling and gave me the evidence I needed to move forward with my divorce. I'm writing to invite you to a small celebration I'm hosting next Saturday evening. Nothing fancy, just drinks and dinner with a few close friends who've supported me through this difficult time. I'd love to meet the man who inadvertently saved my marriage by ending it. If you're interested, the details are below. If not, I understand completely. Either way, Thank you for your courage and your honesty. The world needs more men like you. Sincerely, Sarah Walsh. I looked up to find Sarah watching me with an amused expression. A celebration? I asked. My divorce was finalized yesterday. Darren signed the papers without a fight. I think he was too embarrassed to drag things out in court. I got the house, half his retirement, and full custody of the kids. It seemed worth celebrating. And you want me there? I want to toast the man who helped me realize I deserved better than a cheating husband. Plus, I have several single friends who are very curious about the famous billboard guy. I found myself smiling for the first time in weeks. In that case, I'd be honored to attend. Wonderful. 7 o'clock Saturday evening. The address is in the letter. She turned to go, then paused and looked back at me. Mitchell? For what it's worth, I think Jessica Palmer is the stupidest woman in Cedar Falls. Any woman who would cheat on a man creative enough to wage a billboard war is too dumb to deserve him. After she left, I sat on my porch and read through her letter again. It was strange to think that my revenge against Jessica had ended up helping someone else find the courage to change their life. But it felt good, like maybe something positive had come out of all the drama and pain. Saturday evening, I put on my best suit and drove to Sarah Walsh's address, which turned out to be a beautiful colonial house in the most expensive neighborhood in the city. The party was small and elegant, exactly the kind of gathering Jessica had always wanted to be invited to, but never quite made the cut for. Sarah introduced me to her friends as the man who saved my marriage by destroying his own, and everyone wanted to hear the story behind the billboards. I found myself holding court in the living room, telling the tale of Jessica's ungrateful complaints and Darren's wandering eye to an audience that hung on every word. But the best part of the evening came near the end, when Sarah pulled me aside for a private conversation. I have something else to thank you for, she said, leading me onto the back patio where we could talk without being overheard. What's that? You helped me realize that I'm stronger than I thought I was. For years, I let Darren make me feel like I was lucky to have him, like I should be grateful for his attention, even when I suspected he was giving it to other women too. Your billboards reminded me that I don't have to accept being treated badly just because someone tells me I should. I'm glad something good came out of all this mess. Something very good. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Mitchell, can I ask you something personal? Sure. Are you really happy being single? Or are you just saying that because you're not ready to trust anyone again? It was a fair question, and one I'd been asking myself for weeks. Honestly, I'm not sure. I know I'm happier than I was when I was with Jessica, but I don't know if that's because I'm single or just because I'm not with someone who was making me miserable. That's a very honest answer. What about you? Are you ready to start dating again, or are you focusing on your kids and your new freedom? Sarah smiled, and there was something almost mischievous about it. Well, I did invite an interesting single man to my party tonight. I figured I'd see how that went before making any long-term plans. It took me a moment to realize she was talking about me. Sarah, I know it's complicated, she said quickly. I know we both just got out of relationships with people who hurt us. I know there's a lot of baggage and history and reasons why this might not be a good idea. But I also know that life is short, and opportunities don't come around very often. And I'd rather take a chance on something that might be wonderful than play it safe and wonder what could have been. I looked at this woman, intelligent, beautiful, strong enough to leave a cheating husband and start over at 35, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. What did you have in mind? I asked. Dinner. Somewhere quiet where we can talk without half the city staring at the famous billboard guy. I want to get to know the man behind the revenge campaign. That sounds perfect. We made plans for the following weekend, and I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. Jessica Palmer had wanted excitement and drama and grand romantic gestures, She'd gotten all of that and more, just not in the way she'd expected. But Sarah Walsh wanted something different. She wanted honesty and respect, and the kind of quiet strength that builds lasting relationships instead of destroying them. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I was excited about what the future might hold. The next morning, I woke up to find a text from an unknown number. "Saw your final billboard. Hope you're happy with yourself. You ruined my life for no reason." It was Jessica, texting from a new phone number. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She was wrong, of course. I hadn't ruined her life for no reason. I'd exposed her lies and her cheating and her complete disregard for our relationship. I'd held up a mirror and shown the whole city who she really was underneath the pretty face and the charming smile. But more importantly, I'd shown myself who I really was, too. I was someone who wouldn't accept being treated badly, someone who would fight back when wronged, someone who deserved better than a woman who would rather complain to her friends than work on our problems. I was someone worth fighting for, even if I had to do the fighting myself. And now, maybe, I was someone worth loving too. That afternoon, I drove past the spot where my final billboard had been displayed. It was gone now, replaced by an advertisement for a local car dealership. The whole saga was over, relegated to social media memories and local legend. But the lessons I'd learned would last forever. Never again would I accept being someone's second choice. Never again would I let anyone make me feel like I wasn't enough just as I was. Jessica Palmer had wanted a grand gesture, something memorable and dramatic that would make a statement about our relationship. Mission accomplished.